So this video is on Chapter 8, D-Day number 1, Frontside classwork. This first problem is review of from first semester. And what you need to remember is that when we have any complex answer, root, or any that is a radical, which I really is a radical, it's a square root of a -1, you have it and you have its conjugate. So the conjugate is when you change the sign in front of the I to the opposite. So another answer is 2 minus I. Okay, all three of these are going to be the roots that we're looking at. So for each of these, it's basically what factor did this come from? That -1 came from an x plus 1, because a -1 would make this 0. Now what's happening basically is whatever is the opposite of that, that's what goes here. So since this is a 2 plus I, this is going to be an x, and the opposite of a 2 plus I is a -2 minus I. And the opposite of a 2 minus I is a -2 plus I. And then we're going to multiply this. Okay, so let me get my box. I'm going to do a 3 by 3 box. So I'm going to have an x minus 2 minus I, an x minus 2 plus I, and then I'm going to multiply this. Let me just get this a little smaller. Okay, so I'm going to get an x squared minus 2x minus ix minus 2x for 2i, ix, -2i, and that's an I, and a -I squared. Now we need to remember I squared is a -1, so this right here is really a negative times a -1. So that is 1. Okay, so this right here is 1. You also notice that I have some things canceling out here. So this positive ix and negative ix, this -2i and positive 2i, when you have conjugates, you should end up having no imaginary part anymore. Okay, and then my answer to this, when I clean this up, I am going to be taking x plus 1 still times what I got here, which is x squared minus 4x. And then I have this 4, and then remember this was really a 1, so that's going to be a plus 5. And then I'm going to multiply this out, okay? So now I'm going to do a 2 by 3 box. And I have x plus 1, I have x squared minus 4x plus 5, and I'm going to do that. So I am going to, and I'm going to just zoom in on this part right now so I can write a little better. So this will be an x to the third minus 4x squared plus 5x. This is an x squared minus 4x plus 5. And then I'm going to combine all like terms. I get x to the third minus 3x squared plus x plus 5, and that is my answer in standard form. Okay. Okay. Number 2. So on number 2, I have a similar situation again, where I have this square root of 3. So when I have any radical or any imaginary I have its conjugate also. So I also have a -√3. So if I write these factors, I'm going to have an x minus √3 for the first one. And here, I'm going to write the x plus √3 for the one I just found. And then I have an x minus 1 for that positive 1, and an x plus 2, that would give me a -2. Okay. And so now what I'm going to do, let me just kind of shrink that out a little bit, is I'm going to multiply these things together. Now I am going to multiply these together. And when I multiply these together, this actually is a difference of 2 squares. You can do a 2 by 2 box, but this is a difference of 2 squares. a plus b times a minus b is a squared minus b squared. So this is going to be x squared minus 3. It's nice to be able to do that fast. This over here, let me just do it in a different color. Okay, this over here is really just a diamond, okay? This 2 and -1 add to a 1, and this 2 and -1 multiply to a -2. So this is going to be x squared plus x minus 2. Again, you can do a 2 by 2 here if you want. Now I'm going to do my box. I'm going to do a 2 by 3. So I have x squared minus 3, x squared plus x minus 2. And I get an x to the 4th and x to the 3rd. Here, an x to the 3rd, a negative 2x squared, a negative 3x squared, a negative 3x, and a positive 6. So now we're going to combine like terms and get x to the 4th plus x to the 3rd minus 5x squared minus 3x plus 6. And that is going to be our answer right there. Okay, so number 3. So on number 3, first thing you want to always do is ask yourself, can you factor something out? And you actually can take a 4 out of both of these. So I am going to factor out my 4. Let me grab my pen. I'm going to factor out my 4, and I'm going to get x to the 3rd minus 27. Now this x to the 3rd minus 27 is a difference of 2 cubes. Okay, so I'm going to be using that formula. And so that formula, let me just jot it down here real quick. A cubed minus b cubed is equal to a minus b, and then a squared, change the sign, multiply these together. Okay, but again, ignore the sign because you've already changed it, and multiply the a and the b together, plus b squared. If it had been a plus, okay, it would have been the same idea. This would have been an a plus b. Again, I'm cube rooting these is what I'm really doing. Okay, taking the cube root of those terms. And then this is going to be an a squared. Since this is a plus, this is a minus, always opposite, and then multiply together, I get an ab plus b squared. So this is the formula I'm going to use. I'm going to be using the one with the minus here. So this is going to be 4, and then I'm going to have x minus 3, because that's the cube root of x and the x cubed and the cube root of 27. Now square this, change the sign, multiply my 3 and x together, square my negative 3, and that is your answer. On number 4, I know in class we were doing some synthetic division. This one is one of those quadratic in nature ones. So how do you know that? If you take this middle x squared, and if you square that, you end up getting this. It is quadratic in nature. So you can do let u equal if that makes it easier for you. Okay, and so if u is equal to x squared, so this is a u, that means this is a u squared. Okay, and so I'm going to rewrite this as u squared minus 8u plus 12 equals 0, and I'm going to factor. So I'm basically trying to figure out what multiplies to 12 and adds to negative 8. That's going to be u minus 6, u minus 2 equals 0. So I get u is equal to 6. I get u is equal to 2. But remember, it wasn't a u. U is the same as an x squared. So this is going to be x squared equals 6 and x squared equal 2. When you take the square root of this, you get x is equal to, and this is how we get our conjugates, right? Plus and minus root 6. And then here we get x is equal to, take the square root of this, plus or minus root 2. So you always have these in pairs. And you could have tried all day doing synthetic division, but you might have seen where the zeros were because you're kind of paying attention to the last numbers being positive or negative, but you would not have found these because none of these are rational. These are irrational. Okay, on number 5 here. Again, on something like this, ask yourself, can I factor something out first? Okay, so looking at this, all of these have x's. The most I can take is an x squared. So I'm going to factor out, hold on, let me get my pen. I'm going to factor out x squared, and I'm going to have an x to the 4th. Sorry, did not factor it. An x to the 2nd. Okay, when I take x squared from this. And here I'm going to have a 4x minus 32 equals 0. Now, this is basically just a diamond. What multiplies to negative 32 and adds to positive 4? That's going to be an x plus 8 times an x minus 4 equals 0. So I'm going to set this equal to 0. And when I do, I get x is equal to 0. This is really 2 answers because it is a double root here, okay? But I just have to write the 0 once, but understand that if it's degree 4, I should get 4 answers. And I have 2 right here. This is going to give me x equal negative 8. And this is going to give me x equal 4. Could have also found these using synthetic division, but you want to make sure you add a 0 for your x and a 0 for your constant at the end when you're doing your synthetic division if you did it that way. On this one actually you could do factoring by grouping if you're used to doing that. I know we haven't focused on it in my class this year like I would like to normally. So I'm going to do my synthetic division. So this is going to be my P, okay? And this is going to be my Q. So I'm going to list my P over Q's. So when I'm doing that, I'm going to list positive and negative. I'm just going to put it in front. All these are positive and negative. All factors of 3 are 1 and 3. All factors of 6, 1, 2, 3, 6. So for this one, since this is not a 1 in front, unfortunately, I'm not going to have just integers. I'm going to get some fractions. I'm going to put all of these over 1. So 1 over 1. And again, I'm just going to put the plus minus in front of the whole thing, but all of these have a plus minus. Whoops, I'm going to go the other direction. Okay, so, and then 3 over 1, and then 1 over 2, which is going to be a 1/2, 3 over 2, 1 over 3, 3 over 3, that's a 1, don't need it, 1 over 6, 3 over 6 is really 1/2, so I don't need it, I already have it. So these are my choices again, positive and negative. So I'm going to do synthetic division. Okay, it's a degree 3. I should get 3 answers. I'm going to stop once I get my first. Now I have a degree 2. Solve that quadratic from there. So I'm going to have 6, negative 18, negative 1, 3. I'm going to do it in the column form. I'm going to try 1 first. If that doesn't work, then I'll move on. Okay, so I always bring down my first number. Okay, so my first number is 6. I am going to be multiplying 6 times 1 is 6. I add it, negative 12. Negative 12 times 1, negative 12. I add it, negative 13. Negative 13 times 1, negative 13. I add it, I get negative 10. Okay, so that one didn't work. So let me try, and here, let me just kind of color code this. Let me try another one. So let's say I try 2. Again, bring down my 6. 2 times 6 is 12. I add it, negative 6. Negative 6 times 2 is negative 12. I add it, negative 13. Negative 13 times 2 is negative 26. I add it. So that was a negative 26. So I add it and I get a negative 23. Now, a quick little note here. This was 3 for my 0, because this really, if I put 0 in, I would have been left with 3. So I was above the x-axis at 0, and at 1, I was below. So there really is a 0 here. So it could be the 1/2, it could be the 1/3, it could be the 1/6. You could try that if you want, or you can continue working and see if we get a nice one. But again, if you don't, then you might want to go back and try that. Okay, so let's say I try 3. Okay. So again, I bring down my 6. So this is going to be 18, add it, 0. this is a 0 when I multiply it, add it, -1, multiply -3 plus 3 is 0. So I found a 0. Okay, so this is a 0. Okay, so I know one answer is going to be x equals 3. I have 2 more answers to go. It was a degree 3. Okay, this is now going to be a degree 2, and I'm going to write that degree 2 out. So I'm going to write it out. Let me just shrink this so we can see this. So I'm going to write it out as 6x squared minus 1 equals 0. I'm going to solve that. So that's going to be 6x squared equals 1. I am going to divide by 6. So I'm going to get x squared is equal to 1 over 6. I am going to take the square root. So when I do, I get x equal plus or minus. Okay, so here I'm going to get 2 answers. Now the square root of 1 is 1, and the square root of 6 is not nice. So when you have a fraction, your square root needs square at the top, square at the bottom. We don't like to write them with radicals in their denominator, so I'm going to rationalize this. I'm going to multiply top and bottom by root 6. And when I do, I get root 6 over 6. And these are 2 more of the answers. Now, these answers would not have been answers I would have found with these P over Q's, sorry, with these P over Q's. Okay, let me get this back, sorry. Getting too close to the edge there. Okay, so here, I'm going to try to, I'll half box it. Okay, so 3 and then plus or minus root 6 over 6. Okay, so this is long division. Okay, so you want to make sure everything's in descending order and you're not missing anything. So I'm going to have 3x plus 4 into 6x to the 4th plus 5x cubed plus 8x squared minus 2x minus 24. Okay, I wasn't missing anything. And I am going to focus on this 3x into this 3x to the 4th. That's going to be my focus. So 3x times 2x to the 3rd. So since it's an x to the 3rd that I'm multiplying by, I'm going to put it over the x to the 3rd to keep my space. So when I multiply this together, let me just get this focus, sorry. When I multiply this together, that's going to be a 6x to the 4th. You have to completely get this done. This has to be canceled out, okay? Have to get exactly that. 2x to the 3rd and a 4 is going to be an 8x cubed. And then I'm going to subtract. So when I subtract, I make everything opposite. So that's going to become negative. Whoops, not what I wanted. Worked, but not what I wanted. That's going to become negative. This is going to become negative, okay? So now I'm going to cancel this out. This is going to become a negative 3x cubed. I bring down my next term, which is an 8x squared. Okay, so now I'm focusing still on my 3x and now with my 3x to the 3rd. Okay, that's what I'm focusing on. So again, 3x times what gets me a negative 3x to the 3rd? That's going to be a negative x squared. So negative x squared times 3x is a negative 3x cubed. Negative x squared times 4 is a negative 4x squared. And again, I'm going to subtract. So that means I'm going to change the sign. So this is going to become a plus. This is going to become a plus, and then I'm going to combine. Those cancel. I end up with a 12x squared. Okay, a 12x squared. 12x squared. I bring down my minus 2x. And again, always focusing on the lead. So now I'm focusing on getting that 12x squared. Okay. So 3x times a 4x, so plus 4x. So 4x times 3x is 12x squared. 4x times 4 is a 16x. I'm going to subtract. So that's negative, combine. I am going to bring down this. This is going to be a negative 18x. Okay. A negative 18x. I bring down my negative 24. Okay. Sorry, I'm running out of room here. So now I am again focused on this lead. And so a 3x times a negative 6x. So this is going to be a negative 6. So that's going to be a negative 18x. And a negative 6 times a 4 is a negative 24. I'm going to switch my signs. And when I switch my signs, this becomes a plus. This becomes a plus. And when I do that, my remainder is 0. So my answer actually is a nice one. I don't have any remainder. My answer is 2x squared minus x squared plus 4x minus 6. If they were asking if 3x plus 4 is a factor, yes, it is. Okay. Okay, number 8. So this time we're going to do synthetic division. Okay, synthetic division. Kind of like I did on that last problem, but I'm not going to do the table because I only have one synthetic division. So I'm not going to do it in the table form. We're going to do it as a little individual one. Now, always you ask yourself, what makes this 0? Negative 2. So I put a negative 2 in the box. Now here, you want to make sure that we clean this up. I'm going to write it as an x cubed. You want it in descending order. It is a negative 4x squared. And then a negative 5x and an x is a negative 4x. And then you need to save your 0, your constant. So you got to put a plus 0 there. Otherwise, if I didn't, and I just wrote the numbers, I might think it's an x squared, 4x, and a minus 4, and it's not. So you got to put the 0. So I'm going to go 1, negative 4, 0. Okay, so this time I'm going to actually show what I'm adding. Bring this down 1. 1 times negative 2 is negative 2. Adding it, negative 6. Negative 6 times negative 2 is 12. Add it, 8. 8 times negative 2 is negative 16. Add it, negative 16. Now, a couple of things to understand. X plus 2 is not a factor. Doesn't mean that we don't get an answer, like we don't divide and get something, but it's not a factor. We did not get a 0 here. So this is going to be x squared because it was a degree 3. Now it's 1 degree less. Minus 6x plus 8. And again, this remainder here, okay, this remainder, okay, that is going to be minus 16 over what I divided by, and that's my answer. Okay, we are dividing, but we're using synthetic division. And that's the front side. Okay, I'm going to make one of the second side, which is your homework. Again, I'm hoping we're using these to see, fast forward to the ones we don't understand, or check your work. Okay, that's my goal for these for you guys.